Hey there, and happy Boxing Day, everybody. This is Matt at State of Flux, and I'm here to deliver the continued pun of Boxing Day by celebrating with a review for a different Rocky movie. We are up to the third Rocky movie at this point, my third annual Boxing Day review, and Rocky 3 is definitely a case of diminishing returns. While Rocky, the first one, is a phenomenal movie and Best Picture winner that I truly believe earned that Oscar win. And Rocky 2 is a very strong follow-up that still lives in the shadow of true greatness. Rocky 3 is a definitely entertaining movie. I think this one almost is the most entertaining of the three. It helps that it moves at a hyper-fast pace, but it also is the one where you can definitely see that this franchise is beginning to take a turn and not for the better. The first really clunky half hour of this film, even when I very first watched it, I was afraid I was watching the downturn and that this movie was going to be absolutely atrocious. The one of the worst elements is the wrestling match that Rocky engages with Thunder Lips, played by Hulk Hogan, and even now that is virtually unwatchable for me. I can't believe the film is able to rebound from that really clunky first act. However, the inclusion and introduction of Mr. T, who is so incredibly different than Apollo Creed, and Clubber Lang just being brimming and pulsating with energy and charisma and just this fast-talking, like, jerk attitude. He's just that. He's this pure beast of attitude. Reinstills life in the movie. And when he and Rocky are arguing out in front of the statue that is being erected in Philly, the film picks up a little bit. And then after the first boxing match, the film takes a turn and becomes really quite captivating, and it comes around to an ending that is quite good. So this is a film where each act gets gets significantly better than the last. And it's a miracle that the film kind of rebounds, as I say, from that really, truly bad first act. Clubber Lang has a lot to do with it, but I think the other big element that makes it work is the threefold of the supporting characters in Rocky's life. And I think everybody is given something really interesting to do in this film. The one that I'm not including in that three is Paulie. Paulie's big moment, I think, comes very early on in the movie. It's one of the very first scenes. It's the true first scene of this movie. After the brief little recap of the conclusion of Rocky 2, which all these movies seem to suffer from, just having the ending of the first movie, or previous movie tacked onto the beginning of this one, making the first 5 minutes superfluous. We're given a montage of how Rocky's life has changed dramatically, and it's an excellent use of montage. I think it's incredibly strong, conveys a lot of information in a very succinct amount of time, and it's as I say, if I were to teach a class on how montage works, I would use this as an example of how to do it and how to do it right to convey everything you need to know to an audience, while also informing character from previous movie to this one. It's excellent. Anyway, the first true scene of the film is Paulie harboring some kind of jealousy towards Rocky, and they have their big cathartic movie within the first 10 minutes of this, and then is never really referenced again. So his inclusion in that is being left out because they hit their beat early on. It's a good scene, but then Paulie's just kind of there for most of the rest of the film. No, it's the big three characters that inform not only Rocky's journey in this, but the quality of the movie, with each of these characters being included. And there's going to be a spoiler here for a, what is this, 41, 42-year-old movie? Mickey is the first one I'm going to talk about. Now, Mickey is having a couple of health scares and stuff that he's keeping quiet about, and Rocky's so wrapped up in what he's going through that he's not recognizing that Mickey is deteriorating in front of him. And it's becoming quite apparent that Mickey's having heart issues. And right when Rocky is gonna go into battle with Clubber Lang in the first act, at the very end of the first act, Mickey suffers a massive heart attack, which is something that pulls Rocky down. But this is something that Rocky has already, having anguish towards Mickey, because Mickey has just revealed to him that he's been keeping Rocky from truly inspired fights for fear that Rocky doesn't have that thing in him that allowed him to beat Creed. And this informs Rocky's character in a way that makes him completely fragile. He doesn't believe in himself anymore, and that loss of belief is then thrust into this moment where he might not have his trainer anymore. And what ultimately happens during that fight, and how Rocky's relationship with Mickey is altered forever by that fight, and during the aftermath of that fight, is a truly heartbreaking and heartwarming scene, played excellently by both actors. However, I will say that Rocky's crying in the scene, he becomes very hard to understand, and subtitles will be a benefit. And you might get unintentional giggles if you're watching this with others. But Mickey's send-off in this, and how he has always been in Rocky's corner, but also kind of not, and that's very much in alignment with the character as we've established him in the first movie, is put into question here, and I really like that. It's not as clean as everything can be or looked to be by the time we got to the conclusion of the second movie. So that really sends Rocky on a journey, a quest of having to rediscover that belief in himself. And that's where we bring in Apollo Creed. And Creed's inclusion in this film is phenomenal, because he went from being a character that just was kind of on the periphery of the first movie. He's an important figure, obviously, because he's the one that Rocky boxes, but he's not really like a bad guy in that film. He's just focused solely on his own self-interests and trying to make for a good show and give the people what they want. In the second one, he went arch, and he's clearly the bad guy, and it worked for that movie. And this one, they redefined his character yet again, and he becomes Rocky's trainer, and the voice that Rocky needs in order to find within himself that quote-unquote eye of the tiger. Now, I will pause for a minute, and maybe I'm not the right person to talk about this, but the movie does kind of utilize the trope of the magical Negro in the character of Apollo Creed, and he kind of was that in the first movie to some extent, in the sense that he just happened to be a person of color who provided this white character a one-in-a-million opportunity that propelled him into greatness. But here it seems to be a very on-the-nose usage of that trope, so much so that he's even talking like pseudo-spiritualism things like harboring the eye of the tiger and all that kind of stuff. And that kind of tickles me a little bit. That said, Creed is very much his own character, and he still has that bit of self-interest that he is holding on to, that the film lingers throughout to provide and will pay off for in future movies, not only in this franchise, but in the Creed franchise, with why he is helping Rocky becomes a thing that Creed plays pretty close to the chest. However, he's the one that tries to pull Rocky out of what was and try to show him what is and try to get that eye of the tiger back. And that's something that I found fascinating when I first watched this series. I didn't know that Creed was anything more than a villain in the first two movies. I knew he fought the same guy in both, but that was all I knew. I didn't know he showed up in any of the other ones. And so when he shows up in the third one and becomes the sort of savior again, offering Rocky this opportunity one more time, but in a completely different context, completely different method, and he's just, Carl Weathers nails it. His passing in this past year was devastating. And I thought about doing this review right when he passed, but timing just didn't work out. So I am saving it here, and I do want to acknowledge he is fantastic. And we lost a lot of the Rocky folk this year as well. Paulie's actor also passed away this year, which was, at the tail end of last year, which was also tragic. But Carl Weathers is great in these first three Rocky movies. And I just want that noted, how good he is. But the true shining star is the third one I'm going to highlight. And that is Talia Shire is finally given something phenomenal to do. She has what might be one of my top 3 favorite scenes in the entirety of the franchise, and it's in this movie. And it's this scene that makes me fall in love with Rocky 3. And it's when Rocky has lost it on the beach. He's trying to use the motivation that Creed is offering him, but he just can't get past that self-doubt that Mickey had instilled in his head, even accidentally or incidentally. And it's when Adrian comes over to Rocky and makes him say the thing that he needs to say, makes him confront what it is that he's afraid to confront, and that's that he is afraid. And they have this beautiful conversation where she is trying to evoke this from him, but then also never belittling him. She is doing what she can to be there and hold her husband accountable for what is going on. Not because she wants him to fight, but because she knows he needs to get through this if he's going to move on with his life, and they're going to be able to move on with their life. It is a powerful scene, exceptionally well written, but more than that, superbly performed by Talia Shire. She is fantastic, and she was good in the first 2 movies. I think she got an Oscar nomination for that first movie, and she's good in it, and she's good in the second one. She has a couple good moments until they, kind of fridge her and put her in, peril for a good chunk of that movie. Here she is not used much until she is, and she is the shining star of this film, in my opinion. She is so good, and that scene is incredible. And another fun fact about that scene, this is a personal life story. When I had my child, it was around the time that Creed was released, so I went back and I had just been loosely watching the Rocky movies to catch up, and that was the last time I saw any of these films, to just catch up with the franchise. And so it was on a night where my wife was out and about, and it was her first real night into the world, and it was my first real night completely and fully alone with my daughter, my relative newborn at that time. She was just a couple months old, but she's still not taking from the bottle. And I was trying so hard to get her to take from the bottle, and I did a marathon run of the Rocky movies, 1, 2, 3, back to back. And it was during that scene where Rocky and Talia Shire Stallone and Talia Shire are acting opposite of each other, and my daughter Willow started listening to Stallone's voice and was getting calmed and soothed by that voice. Even though they're yelling and whatnot, it seemed to grab her attention, and she started taking the bottle during that scene. And so I always had appreciation for that scene, but now even more so, because that was the first time my daughter and I were able to connect on that level, and I was able to nourish her. Anyway, you probably didn't need to know that, but I just want this out there in the ether in case she's ever watching this years down the line. But yes, Rocky 3 is a good movie. The conclusion to this film is different than the other two. The first two end on like these really kind of will he, won't he win this kind of fight both times. This one, you're a little more certain where the conclusion is going to go, but how he goes about it, and Paulie's delivery of, he's getting mad, it always tickles me. Clubber Lang is a guy that you want to see get his teeth knocked in, and Mr. T just delivers a vibrant performance. He's so good in this movie. And I think, honestly, as I said before, this movie is the most entertaining of the first three Rocky movies. And if I'm being honest with myself, probably the most entertaining Rocky movie, full stop. It is pumping with energy and interesting characters. It has the best pace of any Rocky movie. It's certainly not the best one, but one that still earns itself 3 out of 4 stars. Rocky 3 gets the 3. It is a good movie. Next year, we're going to be talking at Boxing Day about Rocky 4, which I have a lot to say, but I'm going to have even more to say because there's 2 cuts of the film, one of which I've never seen. So I'm going to be very excited to tackle both, and I will rewatch the original cut before I watch the director's cut and give you a thorough thought on the Rocky 4 of it all. But as we stand, I think the first Rocky is phenomenal. We take a step down in quality for Rocky 2 and another step down for Rocky 3. However, all 3 of these films are very good and have iconic moments and iconic looks. And this one also looks very distinctly 80s. There's a lot more polish and the grit is kind of gone, but that's because Rocky has positioned himself, and reflective of Stallone, in a completely different light by the time Rocky 3 gets here. Stallone underwent a transformation and was propelled into superstardom. Rocky is the same. This franchise gets good when it's sort of being a reflection of where Stallone is in his life through Rocky. But anyway, thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, follow me on TikTok. I plan to keep that more up to date in this coming year. And let me know what you thought of this film in the comment section down below. Peace.